Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Matchbook Horse Racing podcast, and it is part 2 of our Jumpers to Follow podcast. All you hardcore National Hunt fans out there, and let's be honest, the National Hunt fans are just more hardcore by nature. We have got lots of horses for you to follow for the upcoming, although it has started, I know, but the jump season proper. We've got Matt Toombs along. Toomsy, welcome back. How are you?
Excellent, thanks, Tom. Yeah, just praying for some more rain because there's some of the good horses coming out now. It's exciting times.
Yeah, agreed. We don't need more days like yesterday when Huntingdon was abandoned. Unless you've got to go home early, then for some happy days. Charlie Poste is along. Charlie, you all good?
All good, Tom. Yeah, I think we need more than a couple of days of rain as well. We need a monsoon for a week at the moment. It's like concrete where I am here.
Donn, you were at Galway yesterday. What was it? It was all right there, wasn't it? What was it?
Oh, yeah. All the rain you didn't get, Charlie. We got it in Galway yesterday.
I'm really fussy, though, Donn. I want it during the night while I'm in bed asleep, and then during the day, I don't want to get wet. So, yeah, you can.
We all want it during the night, Charlie. Whenever we can get it. And Charlie is not the only one sponsored by Under Armour for this podcast, because Declan Rix is also an Under Armour ambassador. Rixie, how's things?
Good. Yeah, how's everyone?
Good. This is, do you know what? This is a good little crew amassed, I think. Let me remind you of all the normal things. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, please. If you like our content, and via your preferred podcast app, you can give us up to a 5-star review. That's on Apple. You can do that. And a review really helps us as well. And head to insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all the horses mentioned today. You can see part 1 is already out, and some horses have already run and won as well. Banbridge was one of those. Part 1 is up there on Insights, and this will be going up shortly after this. The way we're going to do this is we've got 3 main horses each to bring you, although I've done mine last time, so I'm just hosting this. We've got a star, a novice, and a dark horse, and then any other horses as well. And that section's really interesting because there can be some real curveballs in there, with particularly an Antepost angle. Okay, let's get down to it. A star, first of all, we did specify, please try and keep it outside the really big stars if possible. Rixie, I know at one point you were quite keen to go with Constitution Hill, but we'd already put that up last time with DC. So you've gone with another horse who we also put up last time. Well, I did anyway.
Oh, really?
But that's fine. You can make a much more cogent case for this horse. Go on.
I'm not sure I can. Yeah, but just before we go on, I'd like to mention Constitution Hill, who is an absolute freak and just going to win everything. So, yeah, good luck trying to beat that horse this season.
Okay, can I ask the panel just quickly? 45 minutes is dead on this. Can I ask the panel just quickly if I can go around everyone? Because we did this last time. How would you price up Constitution Hill versus Honeysuckle right now? So I came down 4-7 Constitution Hill, and I think Sam Turner agreed with me, and DC and Jonesy told us we were idiots. So Rixie, first of all, price it up.
I'd maybe respect the Honey Monster a little bit better than that. I'd maybe go 8-11 Constitution Hill.
Charlie?
Oh, geez, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go even money. Honeysuckle 7-4 Constitution Hill. Like at the moment, I think he's a freak, and I agree. But I'm all about money in the bank, and Honeysuckle's been there and done it.
And I like Charlie Post bookmakers. There's no 100%. Always scooping a bit off the top. Jimsy, how do you price it up?
I would price it more like Rixie did, but I think it would actually be priced with Constitution Hill really short and too short.
Okay, Donn?
That's the question. Is it how you think they'll price it up, or how you would price it up if you were the book?
What would you
I'd price it up, yeah. Very, very close. Like for me, Constitution Hill is it's a phenomenal performance that he put up, but Honeysuckle has all the back form, longevity, and everything done over the course of a long period of time. So I'd have them very, very close in the betting, yeah.
The Irishman, of course he would.
Love this.
She's done it. And she's Irish.
Yeah. Well, basically, we just need another podcast on these two. Right, anyway, who's your star? Go.
Yeah, look, obviously, I tied with actually putting up Conflated of Gigginstown's again. I think he could be underrated this year. We won't go off on another tangent, but look, I'm actually, it was a little bit surprised that I went with Braveman's Game, but the more I looked at it, I just looking at his profile, it's not really a surprise he fell apart at Aintree. Looking at it now, he did start his season in mid-October last year, and that is very early. Willie Mullins isn't even getting out of bed at mid-October, at that stage. So I just think it's no surprise that at Aintree he was disappointing. I think before these horses get to the track, he obviously started on the 10th of October. He would have done an awful lot of work kind of getting them there. And, Paul Nicholls does graft them as well. So he should have run him at Cheltenham in the RSA. I know they said the ground was gone too soft, but I think it was the type of ground that had lots of rain on that horses were going to get through easy. And then obviously at Aintree, he fell apart. Look, he's for a novice, he's an exceptional jumper. The scope he's got is ridiculous. His form is all worked out as well. For a novice to go to Newbury and win a handicap of 159 at a time when the Nicholls stable were really, really struggling for winners, that probably just left its mark as well. Nicholls has taken a different approach with him this year. He's going to start him later in the season, and I like that. He's going to train him kind of like a proper horse. Not that he didn't train him like a proper horse last season, but he's going to start the season later with him and just let him build into the campaign. Obviously, as always the case with all these British horses, the Irish contingent come Cheltenham is going to be a different ball game. But I can see him, doing really well in the UK before Cheltenham. He stays as well, and he's got pace. What I love about him in some of his races is, although he stays very well, he's got this ability to change his legs like a flat horse and quicken. I just think he's the full package, and I can see him now. We've got to a stage now in a national hunt now at this moment. People are kind of laughing at Nicholls, which is just mental to me. It's all King Willie, King Gordon, King Henry de Bromet. That's fine. I think that kind of dynamic will see this horse probably overpriced whenever he runs. And I think Braveman's Game, give him one more chance. He's going to have a big season, I hope.
King George winner right there. And the horse that beat him at Aintree is Charlie's star horse.
Yeah, I thought I'd take a bit of a different take with all of this. So, I've tried to either put up horses that have been through the yard here, or sort of an English pointer, and a Hoysignor fit the bill for that. I was actually there the day he won his point-to-point at Kimble, left-handed, flat track, and he spread eagle the field around there. And of course, his novice hurdle season, he was 66-1 winner at Aintree, where he beat Braveman's Game, which was seen as a bit of a fluke, understandably at the time. But, he did nothing wrong last year. He got better through the season. He's a big raw horse by Dylan Thomas, who's a less than fashionable jump stallion, but I actually think is an underrated sire. But you look back through his form now at Wetherby, he beat the Grand National winner. Obviously, Cheltenham, which I didn't think would suit him. And he ran a blinder behind L'Empresse to be beat 3.5 lengths after not jumping that great. And, I think Lucinda Russell even said that it made a bit of a man of him, and he probably needed that, because he looks quite a big, ignorant brute of a horse in some ways, and still very, very unfurnished. But he was really, really good at Aintree again for the second year running, beating Fury Road. L'Empresse maybe didn't turn up and maybe underperformed, but I thought it was really taken. And he's a funny horse, because I suppose the only below par performance was maybe at Kempton over Christmas. And he jumps right, but seems to favour going left-handed. And I can only think, if you watch him, that he maybe likes having the freedom to shift himself left to shift himself right on a left-handed track when he's going in on a short stride to his fences, and he feels more comfortable than maybe where he goes right-handed and he's not allowed such freedom to do that on a right-handed track. But I just think there's loads more to come from him. I think he could be underestimated, because he's from a northern yard and a slightly unfashionable profile, and certainly early on the year, whether Charlie Hall or whether he goes for what was the Hennessy at Newbury or something like that, I think that they're races that could be made for him early, and be interested to see where they go over Christmas. Maybe they go over to Ireland to the Lexus or something like that, and I just think these are horses with loads more to come. Whether he's a Gold Cup horse, I'm still yet to be convinced. Cheltenham undulating track is completely for him, but I'd really like to see him back in the bowl next spring at Aintree, and yeah, horse with loads more to come.
And it was suggested with regards to Brave Man's Game that something like the bowl at Aintree wouldn't be on his agenda. It may be a 2.5 sort of trip for him if he came back to Aintree. So whether or not those two horses will even face each other next year remains to be seen. We had Steve Jones put up Edwardstone, obviously. He'll still be doing that in 20 years as his star horse to follow. But the horse that beat him up at Aintree, when apparently, Matt, Edwardstone was below par, that's not what his trainer said, is the horse that you like.
Yeah, that's right. And that's the eternal question with post-Cheltenham form, isn't it? Was Edwardstone over the top? Was Gentleman to me just at 2 miles at any rate a better chaser? But I think he is overpriced for the Champion Chase at around 15.0. It's a relatively open market because Shishkin's got to prove the rare bone condition that caused his Champion Chase flop hasn't left a mark. Fernie Hollow's been so fragile. That only leaves the Champion and Ergamine as a solid proposition ahead of Gentleman to me in the market. And Ergamine's a formidable opponent, but the bare form of beating 159 rated horse 8.5 lengths at Cheltenham's well behind his right-handed runs at Ascot Punchestown. And he had a pretty simple task there. He was able to go the car park route. He certainly handled the track, but that doesn't mean he'll be able to produce his best if he has to jump at an eyes-out gallop on a sound surface in March. Last year's 2 mile novice chase is probably a substandard crop, but on bare form, as you were saying, Tom, Gentleman to me is the best of them, beating Edwardstone by 4.5 lengths in the Maghull. And punters have odd approaches sometimes to post-Cheltenham form. Some punters take all form literally, others say the form that stops at Cheltenham and all subsequent forms to be ignored. I think you have to be open-minded. But as a rule of thumb, horses don't get tired and so have hard races over 2 miles in the same way as over 3 miles, especially when they've been winning races easily as Edwardstone had. Visually, he appeared to run his race. He was 11 lengths ahead of his old rival, Third Time Lucky, who should have been suited by Aintree, which again suggests he ran his race. Despite that, you can't be sure. But if Edwardstone did run his race, as you said, Alan King thought he did, then he's clearly the best of last season's 2 mile novices. And he is unexposed. He's had just 10 runs in his life. That's half as many as Edwardstone. And he looked a real work in progress last season, been a fierce puller over hurdles. Clearly not straightforward to train, but the huge upward curve he was on in the spring suggests Willie's getting to know him. He looks open to a stack more improvement. And crucially, he's a really fast horse. It's a myth that 2.5 milers win the Champion Chase. Most top-notch horses will stay a fair bit further than their optimum trip. The class often gets them home. Champion Chase winners usually stay further than 2 miles, but the stayers can't go the gallop. The fast horses that jump well don't stop. You need serious speed. And Gentleman to me is the one horse I've seen with the raw speed and talent to disturb the order of the established 2 mile chasers. I think 15.0 is a fair bit too big.
And do you think that Willie Mullins will happily campaign this horse against last year's Champion Chase winner?
Well, Willie has a habit of putting his young, inexperienced, usually second season chaser in the hilly way if he's got more than one. And then the older, more experienced horses go to the Tingle Creek. If he's only got one, they go to the hilly way. So I think he'll keep them apart. It wouldn't surprise me if Gentleman to me or even Fernie Hollow came out a bit earlier than Willie usually does and go for the Poplar Square, the intermediate chase at Naas. That might be a good starting point for them and help keep those 4 apart if they're all going well with Shaka Maswa still in there.
And I've managed to get through that without even saying last year's Champion Chase winner because I'm so still in flat mode I've forgotten his name. Energamin. Does anybody else ever get that when you're still in flat mode and somebody's like, do you remember the Gold Cup last year? You're like,
oh, I have that all the time, Tom.
Yeah, I bet you do. But that's because you get so engrossed in the flat season, Matt. You're just...
Oh, those summer bumpers. Can't get enough of them.
Donn, yours is, I suppose, Donn, a bit more of a curveball star horse, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Tom. Capodanno, another Willie Mullins J.P. McManus horse, he's going to have to improve quite a lot to get up to the top level, but he's got that type of profile. He improved as a novice hurdler. He won a really valuable handicap hurdle at the Punchestown Festival as a novice hurdler by 12 lengths. And then last year on his chasing debut, he did really well to win on his debut at Naas when he made a pretty bad mistake at the second last fence and showed a lot of guts and courage to get back up and win. And then he met Bob Ollinger at Punchestown in a Grade 3 race when he gave Bob Ollinger a race, like going to the home turn. Bob Ollinger had to dig a little bit deeper than maybe most people thought he might have to, and Capodanno just kept on well and went down by about 5 lengths in the end to Bob Ollinger, who was zinging at the time. Then he was on Lucky John's seat in the novices chase at Leopardstown at the Dublin Racing Festival, and you have to allow him his run in the RSA chase or the Brown Advisory chase at Cheltenham. But I think you can. They rode him in behind. He didn't jump that well, and it may be that he's not a Cheltenham horse. That was his first run at Cheltenham, so it may be that away from Cheltenham is a thing for him. It's only like it's a small sample size, one race, but it's ridden in behind. I think Willie said afterwards that they wanted to, they maybe should have been more, or should, in hindsight, they should have been more aggressive on him, which they were at Punchestown. And as Matt was saying there, the Punchestown form, maybe entry form as well, you have to have a look at it and examine it and see how robust it is. And there's a good chance that it was a weaker race than it looked like in paper. Bob Ollinger obviously underperformed. Fury Road maybe underperformed as well. Beacon Edge obviously underperformed, and he was left to beat Lifetime Ambition, who's like, Lifetime Ambition is a very good horse, 150 or thereabouts rated horse, and he beat him really well. So look, he's only had 5 chases. He's probably going to have to, like, he's going to have to mix it among with the best staying chasers around, but he's only 6 and he's got loads of potential to improve. He's going to have to improve. He's got a rating of 159, so he's not too far off them, and that rating was, he got a £7 hike for his Punchestown run, which you can argue that maybe he shouldn't have got that much, but he's a really likable horse. I think ridden aggressively with a test of stamina, that's going to be the key to him. And, you know, maybe it's kind of Punchestown type races or even Fairyhouse type races that will suit him better than going over to Cheltenham. But I just think wherever he goes for now, anyway, he's worth following, and probably worth following through the season as he continues to improve.
Okay, Capodanno. Let me recap those. Capodanno for Dom, Ahoy Senor for Charlie, Brave Man's Game for Rixie, and Gentleman de May for Matt. So those are the stars. And now we come to a novice. Can be a novice hurdler, can be a novice chaser. Matt, I'll come straight back to you if I can. You've gone 1 Irish, now 1 UK trained horse. Come in again, Matt. Come in again.
I've done a DC. That's brilliant.
I love that it's known as doing a DC.
My novice that follows, Paul Nicholls, is Monmoral, who was the leading juvenile 2 seasons ago, and in classic Nicholls fashion was given a season marking time over hurdles really last season. Paul's a master of bringing chasers on at the right time, improving them with age. He got struck into and finished lane in the fighting 5th. Was off for 3 months before fair runs in the National Spirit and Aintree hurdles. The context of that form is at the start of last season, Paul described him as a big, weak horse, and we'll be looking after him this season because I can't wait to get novice chasing next year. And despite that, he was running to about 150 over hurdles. Normally, I like chasers to go straight over fences after their novice hurdles season. You don't want them getting overused to the smaller obstacles. But Monmoral's only 5, and he'd had just 8 races so far. He's the type who could really benefit from not having been hard trained last season. And with the star novice hurdler last season, Constitution Hill, for once staying hurdling, the novice chase markets look more open than they sometimes have in recent years. The favourite for both the Arkle and the Turners is John Bon, horse who got lapped in the Supreme and would probably have been beaten in the top novices had El Fabiola got a clear run or jumped the last cleanly. But you've got to be a bit more careful these days with anti-post betting with the Nicholls and Skelton novices. Increasingly, a lot of the leading novices from those 2 stables are bypassing Cheltenham. So following the vibes would be important. But even allowing for that, I'd much rather be backing Monmoral at 34.0 for the Arkle or Turners than John Bon at 6 or 7.0. Whether or not he goes to the festival, there isn't a novice in Britain I'm looking forward to jumping fences as much as Monmoral.
Interesting. Monmoral, novice chaser this year for Paul Nicholls. Rixie, you're a novice, please.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Gordon Elliott trained Mighty Potter. It was once opined about Vittori. He was a gazelle in equine form. Here, I think we have a giraffe in equine form. He just looks all over a chaser, this lad. Every time I saw him last year, I just kept on thinking chaser, chaser, chaser. He's all legs, basically. He looks like he's going to be made for fences. And I really hope it does bring out the best in him. I think Gordon held him in such high regard last season that he pitched him into the Royal Bond on his second start. at Ferryhouse. I thought Ferryhouse on the ground that day, everything just happened a little bit too quick for him. And he was still clearly green. You know, he needed to sharpen up to kind of win that test. I thought, you know, how he stayed on in the closing stages was really taken. And then he obviously went to Leopardstown over Christmas and won the grade 1 there, the future champions novice hurdle. Again, he just looked sharper to me. He looked nice and bright, travelled, just kind of, you know, clearly learning about the game. And that day he was hampered badly at the start, if I remember correctly, and then he was hampered late in the race. And then Jack Kennedy, I thought, gave him a beautiful ride to nurse him into the race. And he beat Three Stripes Life, who obviously boosted the form at the Cheltenham Festival behind Sir Gerhard in the Ballymore. Look, obviously, I think people are going to throw stones at him this year and say, look, his run in the Supreme Novices Hurdle was brutal. And look, that's fair comment. But I would say a couple of things. You know, that ground for the Supreme, the opening day at the festival this year, you know, I think it was probably good to firm national hunt ground. You know, it was proper quick ground that day. I think the time the Constitution clocked was outrageous. It was, you know, I think it was like 4.5 seconds below standard. Mighty Potter just didn't get into any kind of rhythm. He's never been a brilliant jumper of a hurdle anyway. I think he made a mistake 5 out, and then he made an even worse mistake 4 out. And Jack Kennedy quickly pulled him up. But I thought it was interesting. Gordon pitched him in at Punchestown. And what I loved was how he bounced back. Look, I know the race fell apart. Sir Gerhard didn't run his race. And obviously Dysart Dynamo didn't run his race either, looking like a horse who had maybe problems. But I just loved how Mighty Potter looked like he still loved the game. He looked nice and bright. It looked like he was happy to be back. He took a hold under Jack Kennedy, travelled well everywhere, got to the front too soon. And then I think he idled in front late as well. So I just like that bounce back ability off a terrible, terrible run at Cheltenham. And look, as I said, physically, he looks all over a chaser. He's with a brilliant trainer. He's a half brother to French Dynamite, the horse of Mouse Morris's, who's a great performer. French Dynamite, I think, was by Kentucky Dynamite. I think the mare's got a stallion upgrade because this Mighty Potter's by Marteline. He's 5 going on 6. You know, I think the world is his oyster, and at this stage, I think he's probably an anti-post bet for the Marsh Chase at the festival.
Fantastic. 2 horses that could already take each other on in this division, gone up. Donn, you got one of the horses who's already looked pretty good this year, I thought.
Yeah, Banbridge. Somebody else put him up in the last one, did they? I hadn't realised that.
No, Sam put him up as a any other horse to follow. It wasn't his
Right.
novice. It was any other horse to follow.
Yeah, no, like there's an awful lot to like about him. Like he was a really progressive novice last season. Obviously went to Cheltenham and won the Martin Pipe Hurdle, and that race, it's a spawning ground for high class chasers. Just looking back through the list, like Sir Deschamps won it, Don Poley won it, Kilulta Vic, Champagne Classic, Early Doors, a Galway Plate winner, Galopin Des Champs won it last year, and Banbridge, he showed an awful lot of courage to go and win it, and that's kind of what you need to win a Martin Pipe Hurdle. He stayed on really strongly up the hill, proved that he handled Cheltenham well, and then went to Aintree and disappointed in the Grade 1 in the Sefton Hurdle. But you can allow him that for sure on the back of at the end of the season. But also the way that he won at Gordon Park the other day, his jumping was superb. Like he didn't miss a beat. When he was short, he was able to go in and tighten. When he was long, JJ7 just let him go in and do his own thing, and he was very, very good. He just jumped fences like he'd been jumping them all his life, and just a horse who is another horse who should be able to improve. The fact that he's got Cheltenham Festival form, and obviously augurs well for the festival in March, and that's a long way away. But in the interim, like he can go wherever. Maybe the Florida Pearl Chase, maybe the Drinmore Chase. Those types of races should be on his radar now. And it's like he's the way that he jumped at Gowran Park, he's probably going to be a better chaser than he was a hurdler, and he was a very good hurdler. So I just like, there's an awful lot to like about him. 2.5 miles. He's bred for Stana as well. It stands a half to make Malarkey, so he can go out and trip as well. And even last season, and it was only run over 3 miles. It was in the Sefton Hurdle when he was well beaten, but that obviously wasn't his running. And he ran in point to points as well. But I think going up and trip over fences, that's going to see him improve again. And yeah, I think he's a horse worth following wherever he goes now.
So that's 3 novice chasers covered. A novice hurdler now with Charlie, who was, I mean, I just had to look him up because I wasn't aware of Copper Cove Charlie. Beaten 7-4 favourite at Chepstow Bumper when last seen.
Yeah, I mean, look, as in his form is a hell of a long way away from sort of Cheltenham aspirations or anything like that. But it was just one that Francesca and we bought him in an online sale from Tats in the middle of COVID 2020 from Peter Nolan, and we were prepping him to get ready to run a point-to-point in the spring of 2021. And John Joe O'Neill and Junior, like a few trainers have started doing, have come to the yard and looked over the stock we've got, and they sat on a few they liked, and they bought this lad privately before he got to run for us, because John Joe Jr. really was taken with him. They gave him the rest of the spring off and then brought him back in the autumn of 2021. And if you go back and watch his bumper run at Poste last, I mean, he was extraordinarily green and raw. Looked like he was going to be lapped halfway down the back, and then still, even though he's sort of lugging all over the place, finished second to a horse and Nicky Martin's called Leading Choice, that actually went and ran okay in a listed bumper behind one of Paul Nichols's at Cheltenham the month after. He then stepped forward from there in the spring and won an Exeter bumper nicely. I don't think the form amounts to a whole heap, but he could do no more than win on some slow ground, showed real sort of strong attributes of stamina. And I think, again, if you listen to John Joe Jr.'s comments, they ran him in April in a Chepstow bumper, but I'd say he'd been in training long enough by then, and he ran okay under a penalty, but ended up ultimately beat well enough. I just get the vibe listening to them that they're really taken with the horse, that they think he's a horse of the long-term future. And look, it might be one of these that it might be next year that you're seeing the best of him when he goes over fences, but I just wanted to flag up something that had come through the yard that like might have a bit of upside. And we've done well selling a few to the John Joe team. Gary Claremont's turned out to be a fair horse, and like I say, we built up a bit of a relationship with them, buying the odd one offers privately and coming down to the yard and sort of sourcing horses that way. And this is the first of them. And yeah, like I say, he's a horse with a lot of upside, and it might be fence to see the best of him, but he's one to keep on side through his novice hurdle campaign this winter.
Those are the novices then: Monmoral, Mighty Potter, Banbridge, Copper Cove. Bringing some comments. 2 Up in a Trixie says Manila Kakuna will make a lovely novice chaser this year, all going well. Strong traveller. I think we put up Kakuna on the first one, or it was the one that sounds exactly the same. I think it was Kakuna.
Manila Crooner.
No, it was Kakuna. DC put it up. DC's been on and says, "Done the what?" ? That's doing a DC where you forget to unmute yourself. DC. It's now known as doing a DC. And Bondi07 says Rixie looks about 13.
I'll take that all. I'll take that all day. Yeah, happy days.
Lovely stuff. Okay, let's right, trackers at the ready. This is probably my favorite section. So these are the dark horses. I've only heard of one of these, I think. So Charlie, let's come straight back to you. Don't know the horse, dark horse. Tell us about it.
So again, this is a horse that we broke in by Marteline for Andrew Cohen, called Lac de Constance. And again, he wouldn't really be on anyone's radar. We broke him in. He went to Dan Skelton's. He was a big, really big, rangy horse, but was very weak and ran just okay in a couple of bumpers. Summer off, and then I think he had a wind up as well, and came back, and he was unbeaten through last year, but granted in low grade company. I mean, much as he did win an Exeter listed hurdle, I think the horse he beat at Fergal O'Brien's Peking Rose is rated 129. So the form again is just so. But he's got a mark of 132, and again, just reading, I know that the team, the Skeltons, like him, and he's been minded to go chasing this year and brought along with that in mind. And he's really, I think he's massive. There's a big pot in this lad somewhere, you know, as in whether he could end up quite, escalating the heights to be a graded chaser, time's going to tell. But it also wouldn't be the biggest surprise in the world to me. And you get the vibe that, like I say, that this has been a long-term project. And I think Dan Skelton is one of, if not the best British trainers at plotting things out and bringing horses along with the future in mind. And it'd be interesting to see where they're going to start him off. He'll want a bit of cut in the ground. He'll want nice galloping tracks, I would imagine. And he's really exciting. They did actually have him entered. I don't even know if he was declared to run in the big handicap hurdle at the Grand National meeting, and he was strongly fancied for that. But the ground had tightened up, and like I say, I think they think that much of him that they took a pull and finished him off for the season, because this has always been the end goal, chasing for him, and 132 is a reasonable enough mark as it is, but there's loads of leeway in this horse's mark, I think, and like I say, whether he wins a big handicap somewhere or whether he ends up graded chasing in the spring, but there's going to be plenty of fun to be had with this horse through the winter.
Lac de Constance for Charlie. Donn, yours is a horse who's going to be ridden by Michael O'Sullivan by the looks of things going forward this year.
Yeah, Michael O'Sullivan, he's some value for his £7 claim. I think he only has one or two winners left, but on his £7 claim, but he'll still be value for 5. Yeah, Marine Nationale of Barry Connell's. Barry Connell's having some season so far. And Marine Nationale, just everything he's done has just been easy. He won a bumper at Punchestown there in May. They're not the festival, their end of May meeting. And he took on a horse of Gordon Elliott's, the man driving Divan, who was well touted, had won his point-to-point impressively. And he travelled really well into his race. It looked like the man driving Divan was coming to get him. But he picked up really well when Michael O'Sullivan asked him to, and he went to the line strongly. He won well there. And then last time at Killarney, that race is working out really well as well. Spread Boss Ted, who was 4th, went and he won his bumper at Kilbeggan by 9 lengths, and then gave No Risk, No Fun, good horse of Willie Mullins, a bit of a race at the Galway Festival. Then Marine Nationale went to Killarney last time and was just really impressive again in beating My Gaffer, and My Gaffer came out and won at Listowel then next time. So he's just done it. He's just done everything really easily. Barry Connell says he's never had a horse like him before, and I think he's going. The plan is for him to run at Punchestown next Wednesday in a novices hurdle. He's running 2 bumpers so far. And Barry Connell says he scores well at home. So he's just very, very exciting horse. It's going to be interesting to see where he goes next. He's already in the betting for the Supreme Novices hurdle, but he's kind of 20-25 to 1. So he's still a wee bit under the radar, but he's just a really exciting horse.
Marine Nationale, 5-year-olds. Matt Ramilly. I feel like I had heard of your horse Ramilly's, but that's because I lifted it from this document to put it in a 10 to follow somewhere. But I haven't heard of Ramilly's.
That's apology for it. Yeah, he was one of Willie Mullins' lesser lights in the novice hurdling division last season. He's been a bit of a morning glory so far. Willie said more than once that his homework's been far better than his form on the track. But even so, I think his novice hurdling form is better than it looks. And there were excuses for him last season. He had a hold up, didn't appear until the 30th of January, when it looked as if he was going to give Race Fit, the nice guy, a decent race over 2-3 at Naas on hurdling debuts. Then he sprawled and landing and lost all chance at the last. And after an easy win in a weak maiden at Punchestown next time, Willie said, he's a big chaser with no respect for hurdles. He needs a fence. He might go for the Albert Bartlett's. The education of running around Cheltenham might help him for next season. And he actually showed up well for a long way when 6th in the Albert Bartlett, despite going very wide. Perhaps he wasn't hard trained. To my eye, he looked a non-stayer, having travelled really strongly into the straight. It was an eye-catching run, especially given he'd been clumsy at his hurdles again. He could be a different proposition over fences. And there are some misconceptions about the Albert Bartlett. Punters tend to think it's only full of battle-hardened, slow old boats that won't have the class for Grade 1 novice chases, especially at shorter trips. And in fact, a lot of good horses just don't take to the test in the Albert Bartlett so early in their career. I'm generally very forgiving of a good prospect having run poorly in it. And some stats that Albert Bartlett runners are 25 from 110 in Grade 1 novice chases the following season. You made a 57-point, 52% profit backing them blind. And it's not just the Albert Bartlett principals that are winning the Grade 1 novice chases. Horses unplaced in the Albert Bartlett are actually 15 from 74. You've made higher profits, 79% backing them. So don't dismiss the also rans from the Albert Bartlett. Be forgiving of a poor run. And on the principle that the Albert Bartlett isn't in fact only contested by Dow stayers, the profits are actually lower in Grade 1 novice chases over 3 miles at 46% compared to at short and intermediate trips, 61%. That's particularly important when looking at the Mullins runners. What Willie does is he sorts his A team of novice chasers for the festival and splits them up. He then often chucks a load of his B team novices into the Albert Bartlett, sometimes when they've been running over much shorter all season and plenty don't stay. Alvica Legionnaire won a Grade 1 novice chase over 2 miles. Janadil and Black Hercules both won them over intermediate trips, having finished 5th, 7th and 4th, respectively, in the Albert Bartlett for Willie. So Ramillies apparently takes a lot of work at home to get fit. I wouldn't be expecting fireworks in his beginner's chase, but it wouldn't surprise me if he's good enough for something like the old Moriarty at the Dublin Racing Festival later in the season, given that a drop-backing trip looks likely to suit.
Another one would be Allaho beating an Albert Bartlett, although they still ran him over the wrong trip the following year. They've finally worked it out. Mind you, he's pretty good over 3 miles at Punchestown. Anyway.
Mature horse now, Tom. He's ready for the Gold Cup.
Yeah. What's
He's
he
running it, but he's ready for it.
I'm gonna make a mental note to ask myself Mullins, to ask you guys Mullins Gold Cup at the very end of the podcast, because we've got to put Galopin de Champ in there as well. We'll do that right at the very end. That's Ramillies, Matt's dark horse. Rixie, your dark horse.
Yeah, my dark horse is actually Galopin de Champ.
Up and bitten a few years ago.
I know, yeah, that was I'm convinced now there's no such thing as a dark horse in national hunt racing, because fans are just so hardcore. Like nothing gets away. Look, yeah, I suppose my horse is probably, he's not really again that much of a dark horse, but I was looking to see if I could get a price from in the Stayers Hurdle, but he's not even in any of the lists. I think he could go well this year for Street. Look, basically on my ratings, I think I had him finishing the season 147. John Bon finished the season rated 150, both novice hurdlers, both with Nicky Henderson. But I don't think anyone's going to be talking about First Street, and everyone's going to be talking about John Bon. I think First Street's going to stay over hurdles this season. John Bon obviously goes tracing, but I just loved First Street's run in last year's county hurdle behind Stateman, who obviously went on to win a Grade 1 on his next start. He had to give him a pound in weight that day, and he was only beaten a length and a quarter. I know Stateman obviously won. He won quite handy in the end, but I just think he could be a little horse that goes under the radar. I think he's crying out for 2.5, maybe even 3 miles. And I was really disappointed with Nicky and whoever makes the calls there that they ran him over 2 miles at Aintree. Like, there's no way you could run him in that Aintree 2 miler, having looked at his run at the Cheltenham Festival over 2 mile 1 on the new course at the festival. You know, he looked like he needed every single yard of that trip. Didn't particularly travel well. I just think when they step him back up to 2.5 and maybe even 3 miles, he's going to race in his comfort zone. He'll probably jump a little bit better. He's by Golden Horn out of a Dutch Art mare. He's probably actually bred for the flat. He's bred by Lady Bamford, who still owns him with Alice Bamford. I'm assuming they are sisters or related in some way. But yeah, look, I just think once he steps up and trip this year as a 5-year-old turning 6, I still think there's a lot more to come. So yeah, First Street is a horse I'm liking, and he could be a very, very dark one at this early stage, maybe for the Stayers Hurdle, but we shall see.
First Street, Rixie's dark horse for Nicky Henderson.
Had you heard of him?
Say again?
Had you heard of him?
First, I had, yeah. That Stateman's form is pretty good. Yeah,
he's a good horse, Stateman.
We didn't even throw Stateman in the champion hurdle prices with Honeysuckle and.
What's the point? Just nothing's going to be Constitution Hill. Just move on. The horse is free.
Every horse mentioned here is available post-recording at insights.matchbook.com, except for Constitution Hill, even though he's been more mentioned than any other horse. He's not getting written down. Okay, we now move on to any other horses. These are Antepost mentions if you want. I'm just going to go in order of what's in front of me. So I'm going to start with Matt because he's first on the list in front of me. Couple of horses, Matt, take it away.
Yeah, 2 others for me. I tend to look at jumpers to follow this time of year through the prism of Cheltenham and Antepost betting. But one for the winter is Noel Meade's The Devil's Coachman, who looks a proper mudlark. He didn't take defences last season, was good on his return to hurdles when winning the Boyne Hurdle over 2.5 on heavy ground in February. The runner-up Ashdale Bob was 3rd in the Coral Cup to Commander of Fleet, who was well beaten off in the Boyne. And then Ashdale Bob was a close 2nd to Classical Dream in the 3 mile Grade 1 at Punchestown, so the form looks good. Ashdale Bob got first run in the Boyne, and the Devil's Coachman had quite a lot of ground to make up, on a shade cheekily. It's possible they'll have another crack over fences, but I'd like to see him kept to hurdles. He looks as if a step up to 3 miles may suit him. And on really testing ground, I think he's good enough to give the likes of Falling Porter and Classical Dream something to think about, whether it's over 2.5 miles or 3. And secondly,
sorry, yeah, go on. That's the Devil's Coachman. And the second one, the Novice Horse.
And the second one is Gordon Elliott's American Mike. who trounced battling Bessie, who went on to be chinned in a Grade 2 at the Dublin Racing Festival, and the now 133 rated Gaelic Art in a listed bumper at Navan in December. That was on good to yielding ground. He arrived at Cheltenham rated 138. He and Facile Vega were actually £10 clear of the field. And since the BHA started giving ratings for the champion bumper runners in 2008, only Kilcruck 139 has been rated higher. A champion bumper became a bit of a farce. The air is a false ground, doled off, rain falling on heavily watered ground. I treat the form with a bit of caution. Being by a mile out of a Lord America mare, the dreadful ground may well not have suited American Mike, and plenty of Gordons weren't at their best at Cheltenham. You can put a line through his flop at Punchestown. Gordon's Grade 1 horses are often over the top there, especially those like American Mike who began at Down Royal in October. Actually, since that Punchestown champion bumper was introduced in 1992, no winner had made their seasonal debut as early as October. It's a big ask for such young, inexperienced horses to hold their form through such a long season. So American Mike remains a top novice hurdling prospect. He may be a bit underrated, having been beaten at Cheltenham and Punchestown. And if I were given a free bet and had to place it on the Ballymore now, I'd put it on American Mike at 10.0.
And if Rixie was given a free Antepost bet for the festival, you'd have it in the National Hunt Chase, would you?
Yes, I'm going to put up Manila Cocooner in the National Hunt Chase. Look, as ever, Willie Mullins has got a depth of talent in this division. If he is going to go here, I think we'll need a little bit of luck in the nice guy staying fit, because I'm assuming he's going to be their number one choice for the RSA this season. But look, Manila Cocooner, he's by Flemonsford out of an old Vic mare. You know, he's bred to really stay well. But I thought, you know, he just progressed with every single run last year. He's a horse who was hard on himself. I think after 2 spins over hurdles, Willie eventually put a hood on him, and that seemed to help him settle. But he finished the season just finishing 3/4 of length behind the nice guy at Punchestown. He looked more settled. You know, he did have kind of complete run of the race out in front, but I liked how he just lobbed along. But in his slower paces, he can lob, and then when he's asked to quicken, he doesn't really quicken. He looks like a relentless galloper. So I just thought 25-1 about a horse who's finished second in a Grade 1. He's bred to go jumping fences. He's got the scope to jump fences. He's got the physique to jump fences, trained by a good man. And, you know, I'm sure Patrick is going to be in his father's ear going, you know, we should be maybe pinpointing this lad to the National Hunt Chase so he can ride. I just thought 25-1 about a horse who had genuine Grade 1 form and is bred to go that way. It was just too big. As I said, we'll need a little bit of luck with the nice guy staying fit this season. So Willie splits them up as he usually does.
Right, Donn. 2 up in a Trixie says, good picking, lads. He also suggested that Rixie looks like Sheen Murphy's second cousin. Donn.
That's not the first time I've heard that, actually. Yeah. There was a couple of stages there last year in the office I was being called a fat Sheen Murphy.
A fat Sheen Murphy. That's
I didn't put the head on because I'm not a grass, but you know, that's interesting. That's the second time now, yeah.
Well, you got his money, that's for sure.
Yeah, not sure.
Donn, you got plenty.
I'll rattle through them, Tom, briefly. Life in the Park is one. Just 4 horses that I think are worth just keeping an eye on. Life in the Park, he should have won his first point to point. His only point to point for Donegal Doyle. He fell at the last when he was clear at Ferryhouse, and then he was beaten in the first 2 maiden hurdles last season. Then Henry Durham dropped him in grade, and he won really impressively at Tramore. Then he went on to Punchestown and won the final of the Adair Manor Opportunity Hurdle. So he's a progressive hurdler. He's only had 4 runs over hurdles. He went to Listowel there last week or 2 weeks ago and was impressive in winning his beginner's chase over 2 miles 6. He jumped a wee bit to his right that day, so maybe he'd be better over at a right-handed track. But he's got a rating of 129 over hurdles. He's got the potential to go well beyond that over fences, and I think another novice chaser worth following. James's Gate isn't that dark, but he ran a hell of a race in the champion bumper at Cheltenham. That was only his second run after winning his only bumper, and he was beaten at Punchestown. It wasn't the champion bumper Punchestown he ran in, but it was a strange race that day. That the front 3 got out in front, and 2 of those 3 filled the first 2 places. So and he was in behind, and the horse that finished immediately behind the Music Drive won well at Galway yesterday. So I think you can allow him that. and going over hurdles. He's owned by Sean and Bernardine Mulryan, so the 2.5 mile novices hurdle at Cheltenham would probably be his target if he proves to be that good. But he's got obviously good Cheltenham Festival form, having run so well in the bumper. Flame Bear, I think, is interesting. He did really well for Pat Doyle last season. A couple of times he was a bit unlucky actually not to beat Braun. He kind of was short of room on the far side. Then he won 3 in a row, and he did well once at Fairyhouse to win, given that he was short of room. Again, going to the second last, or going to the final flight. He was beaten by State Man in the Grade 1, the Alana Holmes race at the Punchestown Festival, the 2.5 mile Grade 1 novices hurdle. But, you know, State Man is so good. He's obviously potentially a champion hurdle horse. And I think 2.5 miles is the thing for Flame Bear. He's now with Willie Mullins, actually, which is interesting. And Frontal Assault is very interesting. He was good at Galway yesterday in winning a 2 mile, 6.5 furlong chase. Beforehand, Gordon seemed to think that he would come on quite a bit for the run. He was weak in the market as well. And look, he finished second in the Irish Grand National last year. He was a maiden chaser going into yesterday's race, which is interesting. In that sense, he's very similar to Run Wild Fred, who also finished second in Irish Grand National, was also a maiden chaser going into last season, and went and won the Troytown Chase. And Gordon mentioned the Troytown Chase as a possible run or a possible next target now for Frontal Assault. But he's an interesting horse. He disappointed at Cheltenham last year in the Kim Muir, so maybe not a Cheltenham horse, but definitely if he does, you know, if it becomes confirmed that the Troytown is his target, then he's got a similar mark to Run Wild Fred's mark last year as well. I'm not sure what the handicap is going to do after yesterday, but he can't put him up too much because he beat Darren's Hope, who's 10 pounds inferior to him. He was off level weights with her. So yeah, he'd probably get a couple of pounds, but 142 to 144, 145, that should be fine. And again, a 7-year-old who will be of interest in staying chases through the season.
That is 4 from Donn. Life in the Park, James's Gate. Also got a mention from, I think, Sam Turner on the previous one, and any others. Flame Bearer and Frontal Assault. And Charlie Poste, you've got a good few as well.
From the yard here, and 2 that we broke in, Tom. So start off with Mount Benetti. He's a massive big horse that we bought from Doncaster last year. He finished second on his only run for us up in Yorkshire last, I think, beginning of March. Was very green throughout, stayed on well, was beat a length. The winner is now in train, Holy Joe Smoke with Dan Skelton. The horse that finished third, a distance behind, won his next 2 starts and actually won a bumper at Aintree in the spring. And we sold him to Chris Gordon at the Cheltenham Festival sale. He runs tomorrow, yeah. So there on the screen, he's declared to run the bumper tomorrow. Trainer's wife, Jenny, says that they're really happy with him. He's been working really nicely. And yeah, they're fingers crossed that hopefully he'll run very well. He's related to bumper winners as well. And yeah, he's, like I say, big horse, loads of future to him. And hopefully he can get his career off to a good start with them tomorrow. Second on the list, a horse called Salt Rock. He bolted up down on slow ground, then a track called Charlton Hawthorne in the West Country. Again, we sold him at the Cheltenham Festival sale to Kim Bailey for decent money. Everything he did, his by Soldier of Fortune, was always, you know, high class in his work and his attitude, his jumping. And if you're able to watch the video of his win, he absolutely took him to pieces mid race. What the value of the form is, I don't know, but he couldn't have been more impressive. And yeah, he's the credentials to be a really decent horse. I'd be very disappointed if he doesn't end up with Luck in Life being well above average. Third on the list is a horse we broke in for Ollie Murphy, Go Dante. He won a bumper around Wincanton impressively, then won nicely enough on Hurdle's debut at Bangor last season. Finished second in a 3-runner race where he didn't jump very well at Ascot to a filly that we broke in Nikki Henderson's called Tweed Skirt. She's another one to put in the tracker too. Much as she got a bit of listed black type, finished 4th in the Mayor's final at Newbury last year. I never felt she kind of showed what we'd seen with her as a young horse, and she might progress again this season. And then Go Dante ran okay in the Challow behind Stage Star. Again, didn't jump that well. All the reports I get from the yard is that he's always schooled well at home. He's got a mark of 128 now. He was an expensive store by Cave Tar out of a good mare, Whoopsie-Daisy, bred to jump fences. And if he just gets his jumping together and a bit of maturity on side, 128 should be really workable in a novice handicap chase this autumn. And hopefully he can progress from there and maybe start to live up to the sort of value that he costs a 3-year-old. And the fourth one is a horse that we broke in a few years ago for Ian Williams called Sometimes Always by Presenting. He actually had a decent time over hurdles. I think he was a 2 or 3 time winner. Ran well in the spring of the season before last at Newbury. Finished 4th, not beat far in a competitive race, and then came back and ran just okay at Cheltenham in the autumn of 2021. Picked up a tendon injury there. So we haven't seen him since then. Again, the owner, Simon Cox, is a person we do some work for. And I know that the horse's scans have been good and that he's returned to training now. He'll go chasing as well, I would imagine. And again, was a lovely big scopy horse by Presenting, as I've said already. And he's got a mark of 122. Again, massive respect for Ian Williams as a trainer. And that mark should prove to be very workable somewhere throughout this winter.
Sometimes Always, Go Dante, who got a mention from Ollie himself on the first instalment of the Jumpers to Follow podcast. First 20 minutes is sitting down with trader Ollie Murphy, Salt Rock, and Mount Bonetti, who runs at Worcester tomorrow. Okay, tying things up. First of all, I said I'd come back to the Gold Cup for Willie Mullins. So with the fact that last year's winner is in the same ownership and Galopin Des Champs is in the same yard, there's no chance Allaho runs in a Gold Cup, right? We can agree. Absolutely zero chance. Anyone? It's not going to happen.
You've never played Willie Mullins bingo before, have you?
Oh, Matt and I have been playing it for years, haven't we, Matt? We just never got it right.
Galopin goes for the Ryanair, and he steps up Allaho probably. Who bloody knows? We have no idea what's going to happen. Like, horses have to stay fit, but no, you do make a salient point.
At this point, Galopin Des Champs going down the Gold Cup route. Is that right? From what we know, that seemed to be what he said after Fairy House.
He could be in that kind of Cato Star mold of Gold Cup runner where he's just so much class. He'd see out the trip, but he is a very, very exuberant horse. He is the type of horse you could see running huge to the bottom of the hill and maybe getting outstayed late or something like that. But look, who bloody knows? Who knows? Looking forward to finding out, though.
Yeah, we should just have a separate podcast called Willie Mullins Bingo. Matt, you wanted to mention something else?
You're just coming back to the ongoing Constitution Hill debate. I had a look at the record of horses who are wide margin winners of the Supreme. So I've taken that as in the last 30 years, 5 horses before him have won by 10 lengths or more. In fact, 6 horses. And their record in open grade ones the next year was 725, 7242, F283. Now, there are a lot more grade ones now. It's a thinner division, but it's just worth emphasising that he has still got to step up, brilliant though he was in a fast time in the Supreme, into open company. And it's not always as easy as it looks. Because
Supreme winners don't win the Champion Hurdle, do they?
I think, look, we all love Matt's stats. He digs out some serious stuff. But look, lads, this lad is a freak. He's a freak of nature. They couldn't even keep any condition on him last year, and he still shot up everywhere he went. As fat as a in the summer, he's a freak of nature. Oh my word! Even like I was doing the sums last night. I think from 3 out in the Champion Hurdle, he was still 5 lengths quicker than Honeysuckle, carrying 4 pounds more. From the last hurdle home, he was still 5 seconds quicker than Honeysuckle at home, carrying more weight, and his overall time was like about 20 or 25 lengths quicker. This lad is a freak of nature. Good to firm ground in the Supreme, heavy ground at Sandown. Good luck. Good luck beating him. I just hope he stays in one piece, because the last horse Michael Buckley had like this was Spirit Son, and he obviously didn't get a lot of luck with him. So I'm excited. I really am. I think if they put Constitution Hill in the Arc, he would have won the Arc, given the ground. Really do.
Which brings us actually to. So I'm going to ask you very quickly: flat or jumps? Your favourite? Right. 1 word answer. Declan, you go first. Flat or jumps?
Don't start this shite. Both are brilliant.
Great answer. Donn?
More than 1 word. Just slightly more than 1 word. When I started writing for the Sunday Independent way back, I must be about 4 or 5 years ago now, I wrote a piece at the start of the jump season. You can't wait for the jumps to start. Now the flat's over. And my editor rang me, which was rare, and said, you can't write this because at the start of the flat season next year, people are going to remember that, but secretly, jumps.
Oh, not so secretly now. Charlie?
Jumps, yeah.
And I'm not even going to ask Matt because we know he is a flat man through and through. That man, you cut him in half and it says Royal Ascot.
This was a long old run to the first.
I didn't know what I was going to go with then.
I can't believe you didn't know Charlie's answer, given he breaks in national hunt horses, is a national hunt jockey.
Yeah.
I do love the flat racing though, so that isn't strictly true. But no, but if you ask me my preference, I'm going to go jumps, of course. Yeah.
He does our flat racing podcast as well, you see. So I didn't, we there we are. And finally, Rixie, you want to plug something? Go.
Yeah, just before we finish up, thank you for allowing me to do this. The At the Races jump site is going to launch today, Wednesday, October 5th, hopefully late morning or mid-afternoon. It's a really good site, if we may say so ourselves. There's going to be lots of stable tours on there from the top stables, stats guides, anti-post horses to follow. I did a small feature on there this year, basically talking to, I think I got 22 jockeys just to give a horse to follow. I actually spoke to Michael O'Sullivan, and his horse to follow was the horse Donn put up, Marine National. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the jump season now. I did a lot of the work on that before the arc was even run, so I felt a little bit filthy, but yeah, looking forward to the year ahead.
Well, the arc's done and dusted. It's the Persian War this weekend, so there you go. The jumps are back. Well done, everyone. Great stuff. All the horses will be up on Insights. Bye-bye.